Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with my friend Daniela Tinoco, and we're going to be talking today about her story. She also goes by LAWtina, which she is actually in the process of um, getting a registered trademark for that. So I'm excited to see what comes of that once you have that all settled, because I think that's a really great name and a really great brand. So tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up, and how did you kind of get into the career that you're in now?
Yes, so I guess I can call myself a native of Monterey County. I was actually not born here in the States. I was born in Mexico, Michoacan to be precise.
Cool.
We came here to the States. My dad was agricultural worker for his whole life, basically, since he was like in his 20s. So during the time of the whole amnesty stuff, he was able to get documents for my family and I, which was, definitely a big blessing since a lot of people don't have the opportunity.
Right.
Since then, he brought us to Watsonville. We spent quite a few years living in Watsonville. 2002, we end up doing the change over to Castroville, and we've kind of been here ever since.
It's interesting. A similar story. My dad's family came from Juarez to Watsonville in the Bracero
Oh,
program. And then we, after the earthquake, my parents and siblings and I, we moved to Castroville from Watsonville.
oh
So very,
wow.
very similar path. And a lot of folks kind of are connected to that, whether they're from, northern or western Mexico, have a similar kind of connection to California and Arizona, especially here on the Central Coast.
Right, right. No, and I think because it's a lot of agriculture here in the area, a lot of families,
Yep.
um, a lot of us end up here.
Right. So you had the agriculture background within the family, grew up in Watsonville, Castro. Where did you go to high school?
So my freshman year, I was in Watsonville High, and then the
Okay.
rest of my high school experience, I was here at the North Monterey County High.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, and that's kind of how we got connected was during some of the recent changes of the last couple of years at the North County School District. There was kind of a lot of the same people kind of showing up and making public comments and getting involved, and I think we all kind of became friends through that process, and supporting each other as each person kind of brought different points, and knowing your background. How did you go from kind of growing up in the area? What made you want to get into law?
So see, and that's actually it. Kind of leads into one of the things that we've been, I guess I can say, fighting for, or
Yeah.
kind of assisting with, as far as getting really getting this information to the district, like, hey, we need more resources. Like, the resources are there, we need better use of the resources. You need to take care of, the teachers. You need to take care of this. You need to handle these programs better. You need to,
Right.
like, reorganize as far as where the monies are going and stuff like that. To be honest, I did not, when I was in high school, if you would have asked me, I would have never thought I would get into, the legal field, yes, but more of the law enforcement side of it. That was
Okay.
my vision at the time. I wanted to get more in the law enforcement side of things. Um, had I had the opportunity and the knowledge about, it's like we actually have a law school here in Monterey or
Right.
Seaside that I never knew about until I
Monterey College
was.
of Law. Yeah.
Yes, I never knew of until I was working as a paralegal in San Jose, a few years ago. And like around 2019 was when I found out. And mind you, I graduated in 2005. So it would have been great to have had that exposure by the school, by the district, to like, hey, like, there's these opportunities. Yes, there's CSUMB, there's the community colleges, there's UC Santa Cruz, but hey, there's a law school too, you know?
And I think that it's a power of social media, and maybe, our generation is asking more questions than before. Maybe our parents and grandparents were happy with the status quo, or they were just happy to kind of take that next step. And it's kind of our job to take it even further, right? And so, is there corruption? Is there negligence? Is there abuse? Absolutely. But a lot of it is just ignorance, right?
Right.
People don't know what they don't know. And so for me, understanding the legal system, understanding, law enforcement, understanding just government and funding and how things work, whether it's school boards or, local city councils, that kind of stuff. Super interested because I thought it's really boring material until you realize that it's those boring decisions made in these small meetings that are the reason for all these things. And
Hmm.
maybe once upon a time, people had bad intentions to set things up a certain way. But now enough time has passed and there's enough information available to, if you don't understand how it's working, that's your own fault. That's my opinion.
Yes.
Like there's enough information out there that you can do your own homework to understand why certain rules are in place or how things get funded. And so I'm glad to see our generation kind of stepping up to be like, wait a minute, asking the hard questions, you know?
Yes, no, I 100% agree. I think the only time that there should be an excuse for ignorance is when you don't have either the education or the technology or the proper resources for it. I mean, now it's like I tell people too, all you have to do, open your phone, because we all have a phone. Most people have smartphones.
Right.
Google. It's a simple Google search,
It's
and
a
you'll get
verb.
tons of
Yeah,
information.
totally.
So yeah, I agree. There's really not an excuse.
And once I started to, I thought about getting into the legal field myself, but I think, you watch television shows and you have these legal dramas, and a lot of when people think of lawyers, sometimes they don't have the best reputation because you have, unethical lawyers, or you have defense attorneys that are defending criminals, or that's only one small portion of the legal world, right? But that's the one that's glamorized in Hollywood, right?
Right.
But when you understand that, as I started to volunteer and attend these meetings and sit on these boards, I'm realizing like it really is, it's all about law. Like law rules the world, literally. Like that's what people are always fighting over, whether it's real estate, whether it's, how things are supposed to be done, regulations. Like if you don't understand law, you don't have to be an attorney, but if you don't understand how law works, then you will not be successful in this world, like period. It just, and so when you started to see those resources, you were a paralegal, you found out about Monterey College of Law. When did it kind of become more clear that law was the way that you could give back and make a difference?
Yeah, so when I was in community college, so kind of backtracking a little bit, when I was in community college doing my law enforcement, my criminal justice classes, that's when, it's like my child came along and everything, and I was like, okay, like I became a single mom, so it was a bit of a shift where I was like, okay, it kind of makes you wonder, okay, as a single mom or a single parent for that matter, um, and actually getting into law enforcement, you start thinking of all the risks
Yeah.
that come along with it, and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I can't do that anymore, but I love legal
Right.
stuff, right?
Right.
And that was what actually led me into the paralegal program. From the
Okay.
paralegal program, I was able to get my certification, started working for a PI and a workers' comp law firm in San Jose,
Oh,
where
wow.
I was there for about 8 years. Great mentors. Not only my boss, but our attorney of counsel were great with me. And being that the attorney of counsel was Hispanic, he was born in Arizona, but his family was Mexican. So he kind of was, maybe he didn't have the same path that I did, but he was familiar with the struggles of being
Right.
being an immigrant and all this other stuff. So, it's like the whole time, and for several years, he was like, "Are you going to go to law school? What are you going to do?" So, he
Yeah.
was part of the reason why. But it got to a point where I was like, "Okay," I went from a paralegal to a senior paralegal, and I was like, "Okay, so what now?" I kind of capped on the paralegal um, lineage. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And then COVID came around, which was, unfortunate, but to me, in a way, it was kind of a blessing because,
Mm.
it's like it was a lockdown. You couldn't do anything, you couldn't go anywhere. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I was trying to figure out, should I go for a master's in paralegal studies, but it's not going to make much of a difference. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should listen to him. Let me start looking into law schools. And the thing about this law school, the Monterey College of Law, it's not an ABA accredited law school, but it's accredited by California.
Okay.
So as long as you practice for a certain amount of years in California, you're able to take the bar in other states as well.
Okay.
So and the perk that got me about with this law school was it was evening classes.
Yeah.
So I was able to manage the whole going to work in the mornings and then doing the evening classes, and being that they were remote, it was perfect.
Yep. Yeah. Well, my older brother was in law enforcement for about 20 years. Started at CSU be, and then wound up in Working Hill, retired for medical reasons. And I definitely know firsthand how crazy the schedule is and how crazy the job is. And much respect to all the first responders. And whether you're a paramedic, whether you're fire, all of them serve an important role. But with police, obviously, they're the ones that are kind of it's a little riskier, meaning
Yeah,
that you're carrying a weapon and you might get fired on yourself, and that's a whole different level, like you said, for a single parent to consider. And graveyard shifts and every day out there risking your life. I can imagine why you made that transition. And then agreed. I mean, we're on the fifth anniversary almost to the day of the start of the pandemic, which is crazy to think. So many people weren't even using Zoom 5 years ago, and now it's totally normal. I mean, I'm starting the podcast in this format, but you see it now in the nightly news, like MSNBC or Fox or CNN. They'll just do interviews like this via Zoom or WebEx or whatever. And so kudos to you for making that pivot, because a lot of people would have just kind of stayed stuck where they were comfortable, but you took the time and the energy and the expense of going back to school and kind of improving your education. I'm in the process of that right now. I never ended up getting my bachelor's, so I'm working on it now. I'm about a semester or two away from my associates, and then I'll be transferring. So I understand the
good for
struggle
you.
of working online and working all day and then going to class all night. Like I'm right there with you right now.
Yes, yes, no, definitely. That in of itself is a struggle. But yeah, and thankfully I was able to finish my law school. Now it's studying for the bar, and I was actually going to take the bar this last February, but I'm not sure if you've read all the chaos that's going on with the bar exam here in California. Um, they switched over from the National Conference of Bar Examiners to Kaplan, and it's like it was a mess. Like
Uh,
the
Kind of like the
system was,
federal government is right now.
yes, the systems were crashing and a lot of people couldn't log on, and I kind of had the gut feeling that that was going to happen when everybody was trying to do it at the same time, especially because
Mm,
I had similar experiences on the practice exams. So I was like, I don't think I want to risk it, so I withdrew from the exam,
mm.
especially since they were allowing people to withdraw, full refund, everything. So I withdrew, and sure enough, it was like hellfire during the bar exam. So now hopefully I should be sitting for the July bar exam.
So to explain this to someone who maybe is considering that field or doesn't understand how it works, you can have a law degree and not necessarily be an attorney, a practicing attorney, right? So you might
Exactly.
want to study law, that you could use that in a corporate job or in a government
Hmm.
related job. There's plenty of uses for a law degree outside of just being a practicing attorney.
Yes.
But in order
There,
to practice law as an attorney, you have to pass the bar.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there's actually, if I can share, there's
Yeah.
actually a book that I got way back when and it's a great resource. I was like, okay, if I like never pass the bar exam, I have options.
Yeah.
So I actually got this book from Amazon,
Oh, nice. Law jobs.
Law Jobs.
Okay, there you go. If you're
And
considering law, get that book.
go on Amazon, Law Jobs, the complete guide, and it has literally it's a guide. It has a guide of like so many job positions that you can do with a JD that doesn't have to be practicing law. It can be doing human resources. It can be doing a director even in healthcare. Like it doesn't even
Right,
have to be
right,
specifically to the legal field, but because like you were saying, everything revolves law.
right,
If you want, you can do anything with a law degree.
right. Well, it's just similar, I think, in the medical world, right, where um, not every uh, patient needs to see a surgeon on every visit, right? There's different levels of study and qualifications within the medical world, just like there is within the legal world, right? Certain there's
Exactly.
merger and acquisitions, there's criminals, there's all kinds of different things, but every government agency and every corporation needs to have someone in house who understands contracts. I mean, now my 9 to 5 is in the government contracting world, and I'm not an attorney, but I'm learning just by reading these contracts. I'm also a licensed realtor and insurance agent, so I see I've seen contracts all the time, and I have my licenses with state agencies, and I've had to take those state level tests, and it can be stressful for sure. So
Yes,
speaking of that, you're about to take the bar, which congratulations and good luck, by the way. That's super
thanks.
exciting. So, another local prodigy coming out of this area, Watsonville, Castroville, becoming a lawyer, LAWtina. That's awesome. Um, in the meantime, you got a great job with a well-known local company. You're even wearing the jacket right now. Tell us how
Yes.
you were able to tell us about your experience with Granite Rock, and also kind of how, even though you haven't passed the bar yet, you're still able to use your education, your experience in the corporate field.
Right. So I'm with Granite Rock Company. We have a corporate office in Watsonville, and like you mentioned, even though I'm not licensed as an attorney yet, I am doing some of the work under the supervision of a licensed attorney. And right now, my title is legal specialist. So I do pretty much a little bit of everything, and it kind of goes back to that we were just discussing about, the different branches within the attorneys, what they do,
Yeah.
what they don't do. So I don't do anything criminal. Before as a paralegal, yes, I had plenty of experience doing injury cases.
Okay.
Now it's more broad. Now anything that comes in litigation for employment cases, whether it's wage and hour, wrongful termination, um, car accidents, I still deal with. We get a lot of car accidents because we have so many trucks on the road.
Yeah.
There's always some form of accident going
The
on.
green and orange ones, right? Everybody knows them.
Yes, yes. We actually, it's a kind of in-house thing that we have. They actually have like on the inside of the truck, like "sue me." There's like a little quote that says "sue me" because and I mean, let's face it, let's be
Yeah.
real. Like everybody you see any kind of vehicle, whether it's government or a private company, and it's like there's people out there that are like,
Yeah. They got a
ah,
target
let
on their
me
back.
let
Yeah.
me let me kind of swerve a little bit. So
Well, they also drive. They're also out. If you're a PG&E truck or you're a Granite Rock truck, you're not going to the office. You're going to a dangerous location, right? Whether
yeah.
it's an emergency or a storm or a construction site, um, the risk at those in those environments is a lot higher than the average, parking on the lot there.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, and we have a lot of run-ins, OSHA, like, we don't have like a lot of OSHA citations, but they
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
It's real life and it's in the construction business, so it's to be expected.
Right.
There's also that I'm dealing with a lot of property, like there's property damage, there's uh collections.
Yeah.
That's actually I actually run the collections department on my
Okay.
own. So I'm like the one trying to negotiate, and then the attorney kind of steps in, when it's time to actually sit down and come to like
You
write
mean like
the agreement.
outstanding bills from clients? You mean? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah. And then we also, we have our contracts as well. Contracts with, direct contractors, with individuals, with subcontractors. So it's a whole world of like a lot of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be like we see in Law and Order and stuff like that.
Right.
To be honest, there's attorneys that I've met that they don't do anything litigation. They do, like, for example, estate planning, or they
Yeah.
do, you know, um, business law,
Yeah.
basically contracts and everything,
Yeah.
and they've never stepped foot in a courtroom, and they
So
have years of practicing.
I'm glad you mentioned estate planning. So I've had my insurance license, I think, since 2015, and my real estate license since 2019. And I've helped a lot of clients that, with that whole aspect, estate planning, retirement planning, trusts and wills and properties that were in a trust, and then or someone passed away. Or can you help? I mean, as much as you're willing or able to share, just because I feel like I say it so much, and I feel like sometimes people don't listen until it's too late. Unfortunately, my mom passed in 2016 of pancreatic cancer, and she had some
I'm
life insurance,
sorry.
but she didn't really have a plan in place. And I learned the hard way what you go through when you don't have an estate plan or a will or those kind of things. So I am a big advocate. I know it's a really hard thing to talk about, but I'm a real advocate in families having the difficult conversation. I'm helping a client right now whose ex-husband just passed. She owns the house, but the other wife is living there, and now it's this whole legal mess. And I'm like, if you would have just had a simple will, this could have all been avoided. So, what have you seen, and what would be your advice as far as estate planning or general just legal hygiene people who are listening can follow?
Yeah, so general tips, I'll call them tips since I'm
Sure,
not necessarily giving
sure,
legal advice.
right.
So general tips
See
I
what she just
always
did right
give
there?
people.
See what she just did right there?
It's the
Perfect.
lawyer.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so and I do actually have this conversation with a lot of people, just because they know, that I'm in the legal field.
Yeah,
Um, what do you want? What do you want to deal with in case your loved one passes? Do you want to deal with coping with your grief, or do you want to be dealing with courtrooms?
exactly.
So, it's like I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the people, or if not 100% of the people, are going to say, I want to deal with my grief. I want to be able to, put my loved one to rest. I want to be able to just not worry about anything.
Keep our
Um,
assets.
and that's where the
Yeah,
state planning comes in. So I
yeah,
do recommend, and I highly, highly recommend, and even to my own family members, my siblings, my sisters, I keep like at it, like, hey, like you guys are, but you have a home, you have your assets, you have kids. If something happens to you, God forbid, your kids are underage, or even if they're adults, what is going to happen with your assets?
right.
Um, so my number one advice to everybody is do a trust.
Yeah,
Do a trust. Uh, with a trust, along with it, as part of the estate planning, you can do what is called the pour over will. It's basically a will,
yeah.
but the pour over basically means when you do pass away, the will goes, whatever you set on the will transfers to the trust.
Okay,
And when you do set up your trust, it's going to be I recommend a revocable trust, which you can get rid of at any time during your
okay,
lifetime, or you can make
okay.
changes during your lifetime. Um, you can be your own trustee while you're alive, and then you just set, a successor trustee, which is basically the person that is going to stay responsible when
Yeah.
you are no longer
It
here.
just gives you a layer of protection between
Yes,
your assets and your personal responsibility, similar to what a
yes,
corporation could do for a business, right?
right, and
Yeah.
that will keep your assets and everything outside of the courtroom.
I've seen the heartbreak that comes with, someone passing away and not having life insurance, or someone passing away and not having a will or an estate plan. And so then the property goes into probate, property has to be sold, and then the kids get nothing, or they don't get anything till years later. And it's a fraction of what they were expecting for their inheritance. And so, um, I mean, some of this stuff can be very complicated. Um, if you have multiple properties, multiple beneficiaries, multiple assets, or millions of dollars, it could be complicated, and there's high level attorneys for that. But for the average person,
Right.
you could get a simple basic will, and that'll will cover a lot, right? Or a trust. So we could
Yes.
go on and on about that. And I just everyone, please do your homework. Reach out to Daniela or an attorney that you trust. And now there's even a lot of great free or affordable services that do the basics, right? Obviously, if it's anything really important to you, then hire an actual attorney. But if it's just like a basic clerical contract, there's so many templates now that you don't necessarily need to hire a full-on law firm to handle some basic things for you. But I just see, what are your thoughts on kind of AI and the evolution of technology? And they say that as realtors, oh, realtors aren't even necessary anymore. Well, they are and they aren't, right? You can do the whole thing. You don't need a realtor to get most things done in buying real estate, but it helps to have a professional who's on your side advocating for you, a specialist in your neighborhood or in the process of contract, similar to with an attorney. You can represent yourself in court, but you probably shouldn't, right?
Yes. Yeah. So AI is, I mean, I think it's a useful tool, but I don't think it should be replacing anything or anyone.
Yeah,
I mean, at least the way I see it from a legal point of view is, do I really want to put sensitive information into a computer system?
right,
Because I mean, once it goes into AI,
right,
it's open for anyone.
right.
So you don't want to put, for example, like in my case with Granite Rock, I don't want to put any company trade secrets on there just to be able to have AI help me, conduct a contract or whatnot.
Right.
It's like at that point you're exposing
Use it
the
for
company
research,
to
but don't. Yeah,
liability. Yeah.
totally, totally.
And same for, even like private practice attorneys. It's like, do you really want to put your client's information into the computer system? And then, there's a hack of some sort. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, your client's social security is being
Yeah,
used.
right. Yeah, I'm not going to put my name, but let's say I have a friend who has this situation. What would you say, Alexa? You know?
Yes.
So obviously, we talked about our similar background, the agricultural community and Mexican heritage, and part of what is driving you now, that passion to give back and to be a leader in the community. And kudos to you, by the way. You had a mentor along the way that encouraged you, and I can relate to that. And you're not quite, you're still on your journey, but you've come so far already. What does that next step look like for you? And what would you say? What would be your advice or encouragement to people that are concerned about the current situation, and they don't know their rights, or they're confused about their immigration, what resources are available, or what their plan should be, or there's just so much uncertainty right now, and I know that that's part of why you do what you do. For you, where do you see yourself going forward in the future, and also what would be your advice to people who are concerned about their immigration status currently?
Right. So as far I'll do the easy one first, me.
Yeah.
So I do plan on, staying in the corporate field for some time. There's so much to learn there. I had no idea anything construction law related. Um, the closest I was to having any knowledge relating to construction was when I worked at Home Depot as a head cashier. So that is like
And
nothing,
now you're at one of the best local companies for that. Yeah.
Yes, thankfully. So I do plan on, they're stuck with me for a while. But at the same time, I do have my own business on the side. Right now it's a notary services businesses. It's LAWtina Notary Services.
Yeah.
And I do also do like we were discussing the basic contracts, the advanced healthcare directives, which are basically the medical
Yes.
power of attorney. So I
Yep.
do any sort of power of attorneys. I do um, landlord tenant simple contracts. Pretty much any kind of contract you can think of, the sale of a vehicle, whatever. I do also offer translation services at the moment. So from any document that you need, most of the time it's for immigration
Yep.
purposes. You need like say a Mexican birth certificate transferred to English because USCIS requires it. So I do that for them. That's
Okay.
like a certified translation. I also do that service. I do intend to down the road, once I've been practicing and have more knowledge, more experience. I do intend to kind of merge that into like a legal services, be able to, maybe possibly do more of the corporate governance type of thing. So like business law, sort of, and I might also do some estate planning, just
Okay.
because I know, especially in our community, a lot of being that like I was mentioning, a lot of people don't have the knowledge or don't know where to find the resources for these types of things, or they
Right.
probably don't even know what the heck estate planning
Or,
is.
or there's people who, you know, maybe their immigration status is in question, but they pay taxes and they own property.
Hmm.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
And so that's, these are some of the difficult questions that we're having to answer right now. Um, yeah. What are some of your thoughts on the things that are happening, and what advice would you give to people that are kind of uncertain or concerned about, because half of this community voted for what's happening right now, right? And the other half is uncertain. And so it's that delicate balance of, um, how can we do both? How can we treat people with humanity and compassion, but also, you have a law enforcement background. There are laws, and you want to keep people safe, and there are criminals who come from within our country, outside of our country, from all different parts of the world, and most people are just hardworking people that want to take care of their family. But
Hmm.
it's such a complicated intense debate and all these issues rising. At the end of the day, we're talking about people's lives here, right? And so
Right.
I know it's a sensitive subject, but what are just some insights that you might have or advice that you can share on, on just on these topics?
Right. So, I mean, the number one thing I would say is, in hopes that nobody has to go through that situation. But as you were mentioning, it's like, what if somebody is removed from the country and they have kids and like they have property, they have a home, they have vehicles, they have assets? What's going to happen? And that kind of shifts back to the whole estate planning. You
Yeah.
like you can even do a basic one. There's great websites that people have told me that have used. I think one of them is like Legal Zoom or Legal Forms.
Yeah,
There's certain websites
legal
that.
Zoom. There's a Trust and Will is a good one.
Mhm.
Trust and Will. Yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, there's and if you don't have the finances to go out and hire an estate planning attorney that's going to charge you over
yeah,
$5,000, I mean,
yeah,
that's a simple couple hundred
yeah.
dollars that
One
is
of the
very well invested.
I work with a company called Ethos. They do basically with every policy you get, you can get free like estate planning, like simple will, with your life insurance kind of thing. A lot of them do that.
Yeah, and that's another thing, it's like a lot of us have life insurances or we have our 401ks. Um, and with the state planning in place, what you can do is you can actually set the beneficiary as your trust.
Hmm.
So the money doesn't go anywhere, and then it's going
Right,
to be dispersed however you have your trust to be dispersed.
right.
You know,
It's
um,
so much better for taxes.
yes, so much better for taxes and peace of mind.
Hmm.
It's like we never know with everything going on, all this uncertainty. Um, it's at least give yourself the control that over the things that you do have control of. Unfortunately, this, it was voted into, and a lot of people voted a certain way, not knowing that it was actually going to reflect on them as well. And now they're kind of catching some of the hellfire too, and it's like, well, you kind of voted into it.
Yeah.
uh, but it's like, here we are. There's not anything more we can control as far as that. My recommendation, it's goes back to that. It's, if you have questions about the state planning, give me a call, send me a message. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn,
Yeah, I was
everything.
gonna ask you, how can people find you?
Yes. So my Facebook is actually, I'll give my business one, but also you can find me on my first and last name on Facebook.
Okay.
Or I do have my business on there as well, LAWtina Legal Services.
And which it says LAWtina, she means LAW. Yeah, which
LAWtina.
I when I first saw your brand, I thought that is so great. Oh man, kudos to you for, because I have a marketing background. I was like, that's really clever. I can't believe I've never thought of that or heard of that until now. That's really clever. So good for you for that. I hope you get your all the trademark stuff that you need, because
Yeah.
that's a great brand that you can build on.
Yeah, and the word Latina itself is already trademarked, so I'm like jumping through hoops to be able to get the business name
Ah,
trademark. But
well, good thing you're
I'm
a lawyer.
still, yeah, we're on it.
We're on it.
Um, but yes, and Instagram also, it's I am Latina, so I am Latina with a W.
Okay.
Um, and I do also have my website. You can also reach me through my website. That's latinalegalservices.com. But yeah, I mean,
Great. So you're working
it's
with one of the best local companies in corporate law, and you're finishing up, getting ready to pass the bar, and then also you still have your business where you provide. Sorry, excuse me.
let's see.
Sorry, you have your business where you provide legal
Yes,
services, to a certain extent, right? You're not representing people in court, but you can still do contracts and notary. And some, you can do some estate planning, well, some basic estate planning as well.
I can. Yeah.
Awesome. So maybe we'll do a live, or we'll do an event. Would you be open to doing like a workshop, maybe in person, where people can meet you and hire you if they need it?
Yeah.
Great. So, and then I'm sure maybe you have like a package you could put together. Like, what would you say for like a basic starter kit to like get your legal affairs in order that every person should have? What do you think is a reasonable cost for like a basic legal package that people would need to have an estate plan or make sure that they're all good personally?
Right. So, for example, the estate plan service that I offer, it's It is $1,000. I do work in payment plans.
Okay.
But then
That's
also,
reasonable. Yeah.
yeah, but then what that includes is the trust, the pour over will, the advanced healthcare directive, which is the medical power of attorney. It includes a power of attorney as well. So
Okay.
you get those four things
Okay.
included on that.
Which, and just for the folks that are listening, like I had to go through that with my mom, unfortunately. And luckily we had a family friend who was an attorney and basically gave us, free advice. And I was her power of attorney and her medical directive, but it was like at the very end, as she was like right before she passed. And it was kind of a awkward, difficult thing to go through as a family to figure all that out. Right. And then after she passed, I went to go like settle up all the accounts and close her bank accounts and do all this other stuff. And they're like, you can't do that. You're not on the account. Like, what do you mean? I'm a power of attorney. Like, power of attorney is null and void when someone passes away. And I was like, what? So I didn't know that. So then my friend was able to say, hey, get a small estate affidavit and you can, prove that you're her son and you can kind of handle the affairs. Cause I had to sell a car and, things you don't think about. Organizing your passwords, organizing your important documents, your passport, your birth certificates, whatever it is. Like, do not wait until an emergency or a crisis strikes to do these things, right? You want to have it all in place, and then have a point person that you trust, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a family member, that knows where your stuff is, knows how to access your things. In case you get sick, or in case you get hurt, or in case, God forbid, you pass away before, pass away early, there's something in place. And like you said, people can just focus on grieving and not wondering where everything's at or what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean your power person can be anyone. It can be anyone as long as they're over 18 and they're of clear mind. It doesn't have to be a relative, it doesn't have to be an attorney.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're busy and this is your weekend, so I appreciate you taking the time to sit with us. We could go on and on, I'm sure. And if we were to go live, I'm sure we would get so many questions from different people. And I love that you're open to potentially maybe doing a workshop together where we just share information with people, whether it's like first time home buyers, or whether it's, a lot of people are dealing with right now is, grandparents are passing away or getting older, might need to go into a home or might need care. And then the parents are retiring and they have a property and they're house rich, cash poor. They bought the house in the 60s, for $50,000, and now it's worth $1 million, but they're only living on Social Security. And then you have the grandkids who can't afford a home because the houses are too expensive and the rates are too high. So there's this real awkward tension right now, and each generation has their own set of issues that they're facing, right? And so my
Right.
hope and my what I try to do, with this podcast, with my business, and people like yourself, is let's collaborate, let's share resources, because I have experience and knowledge, you have experience and knowledge, and together we can kind of help people just be aware. Like you said, ignorance is no longer an excuse. The information is out there, but now the opposite of that is information overload, right? And it's like there's too much
Right.
information. I don't know what to believe or what to rely on. And so hopefully, if you know both of us, you can trust that we've taken the time to learn this stuff. And for me, even if I don't know the answer, I have friends like yourself that I can turn to, say, hey, do I understand this correctly? Is this law, this, is it saying this? Or, have a network of people that you can run things by and ask questions of. And I'm just grateful that you're part of that. I'm grateful that, we were able to connect through, wanting to give back to the local school district, and we're seeing some positive change there. And I know that there's going to be other things that come up. So thank you for the work that you do. Good luck on passing the bar, and I'm excited to see where
Thank
your
you.
where your personal business goes. And in the meantime, congrats on the great job with Granite Rock. And any last words before we go?
No, I mean the only thing I would say is it's not so much about what you know, it's who you know. So, it's like you're saying, there's things in the law that you may not be aware of that I am, but then there's things in real estate that I'm not aware of, but you are. So
Right.
it's
Well,
all about connections.
and I agree. And another way to say that is you need to know what you know and what you don't know. And then you need to know who knows what you don't know.
Yes,
So that's
exactly.
exactly that's it. and I'm grateful that, if you ever need help with anything, I'm here to help. And I appreciate you being willing as well. And anybody who's listening, definitely check out Daniela. Her brand is great. Her business is great. And most folks can get, I would say, maybe 90% of what they need done legally working with someone like yourself, right? You really
Yes.
only need those higher level attorneys if your assets or beneficiaries are of a certain amount, or if you're dealing with a criminal case, it's a different category. But for most personal legal needs, you can work with someone like yourself to get a lot of that handled, and you'll just sleep so much better at night. You have peace of mind. There's a plan in place, and then you can go about your business and live your life, and you don't have to worry when you're going on vacation. I knew a client who literally didn't get on a plane or go on vacation while their kids were growing up for 20 years because she was afraid, what happens if me and my husband die in a plane crash? What happens to our kids? They missed out on 20 years of traveling and vacation out of a irrational fear, understandable fear,
Yeah.
but irrational nonetheless. And so we were able to help them get an insurance policy, and they finally got on a plane and took a vacation in Hawaii. They could have been doing that all along, but because of
Oh my
think about,
goodness.
with everything happening right now with the immigration stuff, people are afraid to go out, are afraid to, everyone's in this weird, place and state of anxiety. And if you have a strong legal protection around yourself, it doesn't mean you're impervious to issues. It just means that you feel a lot more confident and a lot more at peace when you have some protection. And so that's what I hope people get from this conversation, and what I hope people can reach out to you and work with you to make sure that their house is in order. So thank you so much for
Right.
your time,
Of
and I
course,
can't
thank
wait to
you.
do this again soon. Have a great weekend. All right.
You too. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much. Thank you.